All right, let's jump right into the explainer today. We are unpacking a really deeply tragic and honestly highly complex case. It's one that sits right at the intersection of suburban gun violence and the world of collegiate athletics. Today, we're looking at the unsolved homicide of Corey Adams. He was an 18-year-old rising star whose life was just abruptly cut short right as his lifelong dreams were finally taking flight. We are going to break down the whole timeline, the physical evidence left behind, and the massive multi-agency manhunt that is still, to this day, desperately searching for answers.
But what's probably the most chilling thing about this entire investigation is just the stark reality of the crime scene itself. We're talking about a shooting that happened in a crowded suburban cul-de-sac. Over 100 people were there, dozens of cars lining the streets, and yet months later, the shooters are still completely unidentified. Law enforcement is basically facing this deafening wall of silence from the people who were there. So how on earth does an ambush happen in front of a crowd that huge without a single actionable lead coming out of it? Let's break down exactly what went down that night.
Section 1. The Cordova Pool Party, a summer celebration turns fatal. Okay, so the events of that night really show how fast a totally normal summer get-together can just spiral into utter chaos. It was July 19th, 2025, and there was this big pool party happening at a house on Fernglade Cove. Now, the homeowner actually noted later on that there was absolutely no internal conflict going on. Nothing inside the party sparked this whole thing. It was entirely an external threat. So as the party's winding down, right around 10:14 p.m., a group of young guys, and this included Corey Adams, were just hanging out, gathered outside the front of the house. According to the investigative reports, this black Nissan sedan slowly rolls down the crowded, car-lined cove. And then, completely out of nowhere, the people inside that car just open fire, directly into the crowd of partygoers. Neighbors later described hearing what sounded like this really long string of firecrackers, then a brief pause, the sound of a car engine revving up, and then a second massive volley of shots.
And this is a really crucial point. There was zero return fire. Forensic analysts made it very clear that this wasn't some kind of two-way shootout. It was a highly tactical, completely one-sided ambush. The victims were caught completely off guard. In the panic that followed, people naturally scattered, trying to find cover behind the 40 or so cars parked out on the street. 4 adult men took non-critical gunshot wounds, and attendees actually rushed them to local Memphis area hospitals in their own private cars. But Corey Adams took the worst of it. He suffered the most severe injuries. Friends got him into a vehicle and sped away from the scene, but they ended up being intercepted by Shelby County deputies near the intersection of Forest Hill, Irene, and Walnut Grove roads. And man, despite immediate, frantic life-saving measures by those deputies and the Shelby County Fire Department, Corey was pronounced dead right there at the scene.
Section 2. Remembering Corey Adams, the athletes, and the legacy. We really need to talk about who Corey was, because he was an absolute powerhouse with just an incredibly bright future ahead of him. He was a New Orleans native, a massive standout at the regional football powerhouse Edna Karr High School. While he was there, he won a state championship and was named an all-state defensive lineman twice. Rated as a top 3-star recruit, his drive was so intense, he literally graduated early just so he could enroll at the University of Mississippi in January 2025. He wanted to get a jump start on spring practices under head coach Lane Kiffin. And he didn't just quietly show up either. As a true freshman, he was already known for pushing the older senior players to meet the team's conditioning standards. He was literally just on a brief summer break, enjoying a rare day off, when he was killed.
You can imagine the kind of emotional footprint a loss like that leaves behind. The entire Ole Miss football team ended up dedicating their historic 2025 season to him. They wore these CA91 helmet stickers in his honor for every single game. And when the 6th-ranked Rebels actually won the Sugar Bowl against Georgia, which was a crazy, thrilling 39-34 victory, defensive lineman Will Ekelis literally took the microphone on national television to dedicate that massive win to Corey, calling him C4. Back home, his high school team, Edna Karr, even presented his mother with their state championship game ball that December. The impact of losing him really rippled across 2 whole states and multiple communities.
Section 3. Evidence and FBI involvement. The forensic whodunit. Take a close look at this number. More than 40. Investigators recovered over 40 spent shell casings straight off the pavement of that residential cul-de-sac. I mean, think about that for a second.
That staggering volume of fire is such a chilling indicator of the lethal, totally premeditated intent of the people who did this. This wasn't some random warning shot fired into the air. It was an overwhelming, coordinated assault.
So what do those 40-plus casings actually tell us? Well, it's pretty revealing. Forensic ballistics confirmed that the rounds were fired from at least two totally distinct classes of firearms, a long-barreled rifle and a semi-automatic handgun. Finding that specific mix of high-velocity rifle rounds alongside pistol casings definitively proves that there were multiple shooters working together, coordinating this attack from inside that black Nissan sedan, and they were very likely using high-capacity magazines to lay down that much fire. Because of that sheer level of coordination and firepower, local authorities absolutely needed backup. The Shelby County Sheriff's Office immediately classified this as a Priority 1 case, but they knew they couldn't do it alone. The ATF stepped in first to run those specific ballistic signatures through the NIBIN database, basically checking to see if those exact guns had been used in any other regional crimes. But it didn't stop there. The FBI's Nashville field office and their Memphis resident agency formally joined the investigation too. Why? Because the murder of an SEC football player naturally carries big cross-state implications, and the FBI brings heavy-duty resources to the table. We're talking federal geofencing warrants for mobile devices in the area and sophisticated tracking of automated license plate readers, all to hunt down that black Nissan sedan.
Section 4. The search for justice. Breaking the silence. Through all these forensics and federal agencies, it is so absolutely crucial that we don't lose sight of the real human being at the center of this explainer. This is a direct quote from Corey's mother, Chantrell Barnhart. In a really heart-wrenching press conference, she just pleaded for someone, anyone, to speak up. She reminded everybody that her son lived and breathed football, that he didn't do a single thing wrong, and that his life was violently stolen simply because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So investigators are doing absolutely everything they can to pry loose just that one piece of information that will finally break this case wide open. And they know they have to overcome people's fear of retaliation or distrust of law enforcement, so they've aggressively scaled up the financial incentive to come forward. It started with the Shelby County Sheriff offering $10,000. Then Crime Stoppers and private anonymous donors, including a GoFundMe organized by the family, pushed that local pool up to $21,000. And finally, the FBI stepped in to match it with an additional $20,000 in federal reward money. That brings the total bounty for information leading to an arrest and conviction to a massive $41,000. All right, let's talk about exactly what you or anyone watching this can do right now. Here are the direct, actionable steps. Investigators are specifically looking for any Ring camera or home security footage from that Cordovo area that might show a black Nissan sedan on the night of July 19th, 2025. If you have any details at all, you can call Crime Stoppers in Memphis at 901-528-CASH, or you can contact the FBI directly at 1-800-225-5324. And remember, the system is entirely designed from the ground up to protect your identity. You can submit your tip and claim that $41,000 reward completely anonymously. We're gonna leave you with this final lingering thought today. Over 100 people were at that party. Someone saw that car rolling down the street. Someone knows exactly who was holding that rifle. A young man's incredibly promising life was erased in an instant, and his mother is left begging for answers. If you held the key to justice for Corey Adams, would you have the courage to step out of the silence? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and we will see you next time.